In this video, I'm looking at some of the most seminal cameras of all time. Join me, roll titles. Hi YouTube, Brian James, I'm Micro Four Thirds guy with you once again, and I'm in Prestatyn at the moment in Wales, and it's been beautiful. I'm away in the caravan. It's been beautiful for the last few days until today, where it's pouring down. You can maybe see it on the back window, I don't know, but it's absolutely pouring down here and windy and getting chilly. So it's been difficult to go out and take some photographs. Now, I did a video a couple of days ago where I said that it suggested that people are using the wrong cameras. Not that I'm saying that you're using the wrong cameras, but it's said in sort of marketing hype that people are using the wrong cameras for what they're doing, and they need to use a certain type of camera and only that sort of camera to be able to get the results that they want. And I sort of disputed that. And I was looking at some of the comments today. Thank you very much for the comments. If you do give comments on the videos, I really do appreciate it, because they're not just for me, they're for everybody else who watches the channel. And you know, I really appreciate the fact that you take your time out and write the comments. I usually don't respond. I respond to a few, but not too many, but I read every one that I possibly can. And one which really stuck out to me was this one, and I've got my phone here. I'll just bring it up. It's from Ely River Blues. Hi Ely River Blues, thank you very much for contributing to the channel, really is appreciated. It just came through today, 1 hour ago according to this, so this is how much it's hit us. Just got an Olympus EM1 Mark II. I'm now realising this camera will do everything I want forever, or longer. That's brilliant. Actually inspired me to start selling off some of the other Fujifilm stuff I've got. Now, that to me was an interesting comment, and I replied on it. The EM1 Mark II is one of those cameras which, there's a few come along every so often, there's something, and it happens in all product lines, whether it's cameras, or cars, or dishwashers, or whatever it is. There are certain things which come along every so often, and they just make such a big difference that they're hard to beat. Now, I have an EM1 Mark II. I think it's fabulous. And it's one of those cameras, as I say, it just does things so well. It was a big step up from its predecessor, the EM1 Mark I, which had a 16 megapixel sensor, which had just a tilt swivel screen. I know some people prefer them, and I know some people prefer the full pan and tilt screen, you know. But it was a big step up from that. The video capabilities were far better. The photographic capabilities were far better. And it was just a slightly nicer camera to use. Now, I love my EM1 Mark I. So for me to be praising something instead of that says a lot, because I really do think the EM1 Mark I was a fabulous camera. Seminal in its time as well, because it was really, in my mind, the start of professional cameras in the Micro Four Thirds range. Up until then, it'd be nice, but this was the first of the real professional cameras. But the EM1 Mark II trounced it. It really was a big improvement. Now, when EM1 Mark III came along, yes, it was an improvement on EM1 Mark II, but it was a little bit, it had a, you know, you could charge the battery within the camera. It had an ND filter built in, and bits and pieces were just nice. It had one or two things which were really good, but not a huge jump. The jump to the EM1 Mark II was a massive jump. The EM1 Mark III, the EM1X, even the OM1, to a large extent, I don't think are huge, big steps. And my EM1 Mark II will hold its own against almost any of those cameras that I've mentioned. Yes, they've got some fancier features. Yes, they've got some improvements, but none of them are big improvements. None of them are big fancy features. They're small improvements for a newer camera. But the EM1 Mark II was a big jump. Now, I've had that happen before. I used to shoot Canon a lot. I used to be a full frame and an APS-C Canon shooter. And my favourite Canon camera of the lot was my EOS 5D Mark II. The 5D Mark II, to me, that was a fantastic camera. The 5D Classic was great. A lot of people like that. But the 5D Mark II, with its 20 megapixel sensor, which the 5D Mark III also shared. It had just a great image quality. I know the 5D Classic, the 5D Mark I, has got a certain sort of colour palette to it, a certain colour science. But to me, as a professional shooter, when I was doing an awful lot of portrait work, the 5D Mark II was my go-to camera. It worked superbly well. When I got a 5D Mark III, I was not disappointed, but unimpressed. Yes, it was an improvement on the 5D Mark II. It had more focus areas and things like that, and, you know, all sorts of bits and pieces, but it didn't do anything particularly noticeably better than 5D Mark II. And even when they brought the 5D4 out, and they brought out the ones with much bigger pixels, you know, the what was it, the 5DS and the 5DSR, they were fabulous cameras. Don't get me wrong, they were fabulous cameras. But they didn't have those huge jumps. And to me, if I was picking the classic full-frame Canon camera, which is a DSLR shape, it would be the 5D Mark II. It just stuck out. Nikon, if I was going for Nikon, probably the D750. The amount of people I know with D750s who love D750s, who just think they are absolutely fabulous cameras. Full frame camera, did just what they wanted it to do. It had all the features, all the abilities, and some fantastic image quality. So that's what I actually think we've got. And this is where I was saying about this, being able to take photographs, having the wrong camera last time. I don't believe there is a wrong camera. Another comment said the best camera for the job is the one that you have with you, and that's absolutely true. The one that's in your hand, the camera that you pick up. I take my GX8 around a lot because it just works well. I love the feel of it. I love the shape of it. I love its ability just to pick up and take a shot, and I know I'm going to get a good shot. It's not the fanciest camera on the market. It had shutter shock, which was a problem, and it's now been sort of got round electronically, but it never really was a huge problem for me. And I always found there was other ways to take a photograph so to get out of that issue. And with the firmware, as I say, it just puts in an electronic shutter mode up between a couple of certain speeds where you got problems, but it just works well. Has it been superseded? Yes, it has been superseded. But there's also other cameras in other ranges. I say the 750 from Nikon. If you look at Lumix, there's actually two in Lumix, and the same thing, which I think were huge jumps. The G7. I think the G7 was an amazing camera because it really brought hybrid cameras to the usability of an awful lot of people. The amount of videos you used to see shot on G7s, which were up on YouTube, was incredible. You couldn't get moved for videos which were shot in G7s at one point. Then, of course, we had the G80, the G85, the G90 and 95, whatever the combinations were, which were fine, you know, good cameras, but not a huge improvement on the G7. It wasn't until you got the G9, which came along in about 2017, 18, end of 17, beginning of 18, you got the G9, and that G9 was a huge jump. It really was a massive jump for Panasonic Lumix. And that camera, even though it's so old now, it's had a few firmware updates and things on, and it's now been superseded by the Mark II. But the Mark II is a fabulous camera. But it's not a huge jump from the G9 for me. It's a lovely camera. Would I like one? I'd love one. Would I like an OM1? Of course I would. Especially a Mark II. I'd love one. But none of them are big enough jumps to make me give up on my EM1 Mark II or my G9. None of them. And I think that we have this across the board in various products. There's been seminal cars which have came out, cars which have changed how we actually perceive motor vehicles, and which would last for a long time. I mean, the archetypal one's probably the VW Beetle, the Beetle which came out, you know, just pre-war, but had such an impact on vehicle design and vehicle sellability to the public, what it would do, how you could make a car, how you could actually get it to be produced in large numbers and how it would actually interact with the public. That was an amazing vehicle. The Morris Mini Minor, when it came out in the UK, the tiny little Mini from the Italian Job. If you're not familiar with Minis, if you've seen the original Italian Job from 1969 or whenever it was with Michael Caine, that's the cars I'm on about. They were amazing. You had a few which are like that. The 2CV from Citroën in France. Amazing vehicles which changed forever how those vehicles were going to be perceived by the public, but which took a long time for any producers to better. Any producers to make a better version of it, to improve on it noticeably. Yes, there was always little improvements. Yes, there was always little things done, but to be able to do a car of that, those cars were seminal. And you can pick almost any product range, and I'm sure you'd find the same thing. So going back to my previous video about why I said that, why I thought it was wrong that people were saying that you're using the wrong camera for a certain job. That's why. Because if you've got a really good camera, it will do almost any job you want it to. Now, I actually think that the argument I made in that, where I was taking other people's arguments, should I say, another one that I made, but the other people's arguments, you're using the wrong camera. If they'd said you're using the wrong lens, I might have gone with that. Because I think, to me, the glass makes all the difference. But again, even with that, as I said last time, it's the person standing behind the camera. And if you're using an OM1 or an EM1X or an EM1 Mark III or an EM1 Mark II, the person behind the camera will make that image happen. If they really want that image to happen, it'll happen there. So, thank you very much for the comment on that, because it really started me thinking about things. And I think if you bought that EM1 Mark II, Ely River Blues, was it? I think it was Ely River Blues. Yeah, Ely River Blues. If you bought that EM1 Mark II, I think you're right. I think you can have a camera which will last a long time and take all the photographs you want for a long time, and will probably be more capable than, well, certainly from my point of view, I'm guessing maybe at other people's point of view, but probably a much more capable camera than a photographer is of using it. I'll leave that to your imagination and your ego to say if you are bigger than your camera or not. But I actually think my cameras, I'm playing catch up the whole time. So what do you think? Let me know in the comments below. I really do appreciate knowing what you think on these things. And if you have enjoyed this video, give me another thumbs up, please. It really does help. And if you're not a subscriber, about 50% of my viewers are not subscribers. And it really does help. It doesn't cost you anything. It just puts you up onto gets my videos noticed on your subscriber list. But it does the channel a huge amount of help. And if you down there hitting the subscribe button or give me a thumbs up, maybe you'd like to donate a cup of coffee, there's a link in the description below. And while you're in there, if you'd like to take a longer support the channel, there's a Patreon link if you'd like to become a patron of the channel, and you get to see some videos before the rest of the YouTubers do, so it's worth it on that one. And even on the basic level, you get to be one of these wonderful people whose name's coming up here, my patrons. Thank you. I shall see you soon, but whatever you do, whatever the weather's doing, whether it's pouring of rain and being cold, or whether it's glorious sunshine, keep on taking your camera out, keep on having fun with your photography. See you soon. Bye-bye.